Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. I hope the week is going well, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. We'll call it match day, shall we? Obviously, technically, it's not quite match day because the game does kick off in the early hours of Thursday morning, and I am recording this on Wednesday, but we'll call it match day, shall we? Because Arsenal do finish off their USA tour a little bit later on when they take on Liverpool in Philadelphia, looking to build on the win against Manchester United and the earlier draw against Bournemouth. We will talk about that game a little bit later on in the show. I'll try and fail pretty spectacularly, I imagine, to do a predicted 11 as well. But we're also going to talk about Josh Kroenke. He's been speaking over in the USA tour, giving an exclusive interview to ESPN. We'll have a little bit of a look at what he's had to say. If you want to read the full interview done by James Ollie over in the States, fantastic interview. I retweeted it on Twitter, but I also dropped the link to the interview down into the description below if you want to go and read that, because it's a really good interview with Josh, who talks a lot about a wide range of subjects. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Emil Smith-Rowe. We'll talk about Eddie Nketiah, Chido Obi Martin, as well as he nears that move to Manchester United. All about the pathway, apparently, that move. So, we'll talk about those sort of things as well. So let's get started, and we'll talk with Josh. We'll start with Josh Kroenke, shall we, who has been speaking, as I said, to James Ollie over in the United States. And the interview is down in the description below. I just wanted to pull out a couple of points. He talks about transfers and the squad and makes a bit of a sort of vow to the Arsenal fans about, there is more to come this summer. Just wait and see. Also talks about the Emirates, and not quite sure when you sort of read what he said, whether he means about renovation or potential expansion. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first of all, just on the squad and transfers and how things are shaping up, he says, look, our goal was always to compete for the Premier League title, because if you look around the world, if you are competing for the title year in, year out, you are competing for everything else. What can our fans expect? Everything they've gotten in the last few years. We're going to keep adding to the group. I know Mikel's energy is through the roof in the best of ways. Our women's team as well, you see how our women's sport is taking off around the world. We are really excited about that part of the business. But as our club, our main goal is to continue to make our supporters proud. I think this group is ready for the challenge, and we're going to keep adding some talent to it so we have a chance to get one spot higher and really give our fans something to celebrate. So a bit of a promise there from Josh Kroenke. We are going to keep adding talent to this group to try and move from second to first. Now, obviously, those are words that I think every single Arsenal fan would like to hear. And I think when you look at previous history in the last few years, certainly since they took full control of the club from Usmanov and won that sort of battle to take full custodianship of Arsenal, you have to say they have backed the club. They have put a lot of money in. They have spent big in the transfer market. They've backed Mikel Arteta. They've already done that with the signing of Calafiori so far this summer. And as Josh has now promised, basically, they are going to keep adding talent to the squad. So there is more to expect between now and the end of the transfer window, which, is a pretty much given, because there's no way Mikel Arteta would want just one new signing this summer, no matter what he says publicly. He knows he needs to add more to this squad. He needs a midfielder. He needs an attacker. And I'm sure they will come in. And Josh Kroenke there has basically promised it. He's been over, if you're watching on YouTube, you see him there speaking to Martin Odegaard. He's been around the tour, as you would expect. They've obviously played the game in LA, which is the Kroenke's amazing new stadium, the SoFi Stadium. And that is interesting because he does talk to James a little bit about the Emirates Stadium. And this is what he had to say. Let me just have a look, make sure I got the quote right. He said, "It would be premature to talk about any plans in depth, but the internal conversations are starting to occur about the stadium. It is not an easy renovation, but we see the possibilities of what's there." So does stop short of talking about expansion. He talks about renovation there. Now, if it was to be expansion, and I've talked about it in his previous shows, it would be a major, major battle for the Kroenkes if it was going to be expansion. They would have to basically rip up the agreement that was originally done with the Islington Council. There would have to be huge amounts of meetings, public consultations. They would meet the fiercest of opposition from people around the stadium, I would imagine, because it was very much set in stone. It was 60,000 and nothing else when the stadium was built. But you can see from the Kroenke's point of view how appealing it would be to get more seats into the stadium. of course, you look at the success they've had with SoFi and what an unbelievable arena that is and the money that that will bring in. And they'll look at Arsenal and think, look, we've got this great new stadium. Well, it's say new, it's like 20 years old now, obviously, or get approaching 20 years old. And it is still a great stadium, but it does need work. There's no doubt about that. Time is already catching up on it. You've seen Tottenham move into this huge, unbelievable stadium just down the road, which is just bringing them in so much more money than what Arsenal's is bringing in. You see United are planning to build a whole new stadium based on SoFi as well. So Jim Ratcliffe's been speaking about that. Cities just continue to build on the Etihad. West Ham have now got a bigger stadium than Arsenal. Everton are building a new state-of-the-art stadium. You know, the Emirates all of a sudden, very, very quickly, where it was the newest and the most state-of-the-art stadium, is now already lagging behind. And in financial terms, you can see why the Kroenkes are looking at that and thinking, you know, if we can renovate this ground and make it into an unbelievable arena, we've got this huge waiting list for tickets, huge demand for tickets. We see the grief that the ballot system causes and how unfair so many fans think that is because they're not getting tickets when others are. If we could add more seats to this, it would solve that problem. We'd bring in a lot more money. We could add even more commercial revenue probably to the club because of the scale of the stadium. We could bring in a lot more money from, VIP areas in the stadium and that sort of thing. So you can see why it's a huge thing and that discussions are happening about it. But it would be one hell of a battle that they would have to gear up for to get this. Like I said, with Islington Council, first of all, with the public who live around the stadium, it would be one hell of a battle that they would have to go through to try and get this done. But as I said, he was very careful, I thought, in his words when he talked about renovation and didn't mention the word there really in terms of actual expansion. So we'll have to see how it goes. Obviously, as he said, it's all very, very premature at the moment. There's only some internal discussions going on, but it's definitely one to follow with interest to see if they do even attempt to try and get something done when it comes to the stadium. But yeah, as I said, the rest of it is so much more that Josh has spoken about in this interview, from Arteta, from Emery to just the work being done behind the scenes, so much. So head down into the description if you haven't already. You can find the link to James's interview. Give it a read, and yeah, let me know what you guys would think of what Josh Kroenke has had to say. Anything you want to react to, let me know as always in the comments below. Okay, moving on to the latest sort of transfer tidbits doing the round. David with yet another exclusive from the machine that is David Ornstein, saying that Marseille have now made an improved offer to sign Eddie Nketiah. He says a new bid nearing 20 million euros, similar to the previous one in terms of valuation, obviously, but closer to the formula Arsenal wants. So that would obviously be the sort of staggered payments, that sort of thing, likely to be deemed unrealistic by Arsenal, but talks ongoing. 5-year contract agreed, 25-year-old keen on the move to Marseille. It'll be interesting to see if Eddie plays tonight, because obviously that will give us a good sign on what Arsenal think of this latest offer, even if it has been rejected. Is it one that they think is close enough for them to decide not to play Eddie? We've seen with Emile Smith-Rowe and Fulham, they obviously felt the talks with Fulham were going in the direction where they thought we're not going to risk playing him in this game. And then so he didn't play against Bournemouth, didn't play against United, and then the bid was accepted. Be interesting to see if it's a similar situation for Eddie today. I have to say, though, they've got to get really serious here, Marseille, if they want to sign Eddie. That bid for me is just not a serious offer for Eddie Nketiah. 20 million euros, that's about 17 million pounds for Eddie. Proven Premier League goal scorer. Only just turned 25, years left on his contract. If Arsenal are getting 35 million pounds for Emile Smith-Rowe, and I love Emile, you all know I do, but if they're getting 35 million pounds for a player who's barely played for the last 2 years, hasn't scored a goal in about 2 years at the top level, in the Premier League level, how can Eddie basically be worth half of that? It's just not right, and Arsenal, I really hope they don't even entertain this and say, right, if you want him, and obviously Eddie wants that move, but if you want him, you've got to get serious and actually give us a proper offer here, because this isn't a proper offer, in my opinion. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it all in the comments below when it comes to Eddie's future. From Eddie to Emile, he's obviously had his medical now. Video doing the rounds yesterday of him coming out with his agent. I haven't done his medical with Fulham. He will head over and link up with Fulham for their pre-season tour in Portugal. Basically now just waiting on confirmation of the deal for it to happen. Sad times, but exciting times for him. And I'm delighted for him to get a decent move to a Premier League club. And I really hope that he absolutely smashes it, as I've said before, just not against Arsenal. But yeah, I mean, you sort of compare that deal, 35 million all in for Eddie, or 34 million all in for ESR. 17 million for Eddie. It just doesn't. It just doesn't stand up. You just can't. That's just not acceptable, surely. And as I said, I just really hope Arsenal get serious here for Eddie. It's the right time for Eddie to move, just like it was the right time for Emil to move. But you've got to make decent money on Eddie Nketiah. You can't be giving away a young English striker who scored goals in the Premier League, who's got a lot of time left on his contract. You just can't be giving him away for far less than he is worth. I mean, what you're looking at the sort of the Jan Duran move at the moment for Aston Villa, potentially to Chelsea or to someone else. You know, they're looking at 35, 40 million pounds for Duran. How can he be worth that and Eddie Nketiah are only worth 70 million? It just makes zero sense to me in terms of a sort of business point of view. And I would hope that Arsenal stand firm, just as they did with Emil initially. You know, rejected a fair few bids for Emil, and then they got the sort of deal which they were quite happy with, and I think is a decent deal. They've got to do the same when it comes to Eddie Nketiah, if you ask me. Right, just on Chido Obi Martin, Fabrizio reporting that he has now agreed to that move to United. It's all about the pathway for Chido, apparently. That's why he's made the move to Manchester United with their two young up-and-coming strikers ahead of him in the first team. Look, I don't know. And, you know, you're going to get, it's easy for his side to talk to people and say, look, it's all about the pathway. But then it's so easy for other people to say, look, it's all about the money. At the end of the day, we're just going to have to wait and see if it proves to be a good decision by him to leave Arsenal and join Manchester United. You know, I've got no ill feeling towards him, to be honest. I've never seen him play other than video clips of him scoring goals. I've got no emotional ties to Chido Obi Martin, and you know, it just doesn't really bother me. It's a 16-year-old kid who's obviously been advised that this is a better move for him for whatever reason, whether that be pathway as is being sort of drip fed out, or whether it is about money, because he's certainly on a lot more money at Manchester United than he would have been at Arsenal. And I know for a fact that Arsenal were very, very happy with the offer that they made Chido. They did all they could. They felt they did absolutely all they could to keep him. You know, he's 16 years old. He's been promoted, playing 21s football, training with the first team. Arteta wanted to keep him, told him that himself, told him he would be getting opportunities. They offered big, big money for a kid of just 16 who'd never played for the first team before. And they are very happy and content with what they did to try and keep Chido. So, you know, you can only do so much. If he decides then to move to someone else, then he decides to move to someone else. And good luck to him. As I said, I've got no real ill feeling towards him. And it'll be very interesting to see how the next few years go when it comes to him and his move to Manchester United. Arsenal training in Philadelphia yesterday ahead of the game against Liverpool. See Ricardo Calafiori there if you're watching on YouTube. He did join in with the squad for parts of the session. I don't think he did the full session with the squad, but he joined in with parts of the session with the squad. I think he'll probably play against Liverpool. I reckon he'll get 20 minutes or so, unless he's got some sort of injury that the coaching staff are worried about, which I don't think he has, given he trained yesterday. I think Arsenal would like to give the fans a little bit of a treat over there, and he'll come on for 20 minutes or so in the second half. I think Mikel will go pretty strong for this game. It's the last game of the tour. Obviously, you come back, you've only got 2 games left then before the start of the Premier League season. So I think we'll see probably a couple of changes from the Liverpool game. Certainly one in defence. I'd be surprised if Aiden Heaven starts again. You look at Gabriel, he's back. Yes, he's came back a little bit after everyone else, but he did get some minutes in the game against United. It wouldn't surprise me if he starts alongside Urian Timber today in the heart of the defence, just to tighten things up a little bit more, just to get some minutes in his legs, maybe even 45 minutes, but just, step up the plans to get Gabriel fit in time for the start of the new season. As I said, I think Calafiori will probably make his debut just to give the fans a little bit of a treat. So this is the predicted 11 that I'm going for tonight's game. Karl Hein in goal. I'm going White, Timber, Gabriel and Zinchenko at the back 4. Partey, Odegaard and Nwaneri. Really hope Nwaneri keeps his spot. He deserves to. And then I'm going to go again, Vieira, Nelson, Jesus, maybe Martinelli. But I think Nelson's played well in the tour so far. Trossard started the last game, obviously. It might be wise to give Martinelli, similar to Gabriel, 45 minutes. But I just think because of the options he has on the left-hand side of that attack, there's no need to rush Gabriel Martinelli back. I think there's probably more of a need to get Gabriel Magalhaes up to speed a little bit more quickly than Martinelli. So that's a predicted 11 I'm going for. Hein, White, Timber, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Odegaard, Nwaneri, Vieira, Jesus and Nelson. After the game tonight, come back on here. As always, give me your reaction to what you've seen, who impressed you, who didn't impress you, any sort of reaction to the game. I'll pull them together and I'll get them included in tomorrow's reaction show. Okay, moving on to some questions and comments before we wrap this one's up. Just wanted to flag this one from I Catch Birds, who says, American Gooner here and will be attending the game tomorrow night. Excited to watch the Arsenal for my second time and hoping to see Calafiori make his debut. Appreciate you, Charles, for your videos every day covering the club. No worries at all. Hope you have a great time. And your second time watching Arsenal, I know that's going to be a really, really special night for you. So, yeah, really hope you enjoy it. And I hope you do get to see Calafiori make his debut. Here's one from, oh my word, how do you even start to pronounce that? I'm not even going to get that right, so I'm just going to leave it. You can see who that's from. But he says, Charles, I don't get what the fuss is about when it comes to Chido. Balogun used to score for fun at academy level, and at some point it was reported that the academy football was too easy for Balogun. But in the men's game, he's just been like the average footballer. So Chido can go wherever he wants to further his career and prove himself. He'll probably need 5 years to get to proper senior level. We'll have to wait and see. As I've just been speaking about, I'm with you. I don't really get the I'm just not overly bothered. Yes, I would have liked to have kept Chido because he looks like a hell of a talent, but I absolutely take the whole physical stature thing into account when I'm looking at Chido. He just looks on a completely different level physically to everyone else he's been playing against at that level where he scored all of those goals. So until I see him doing that at, regularly, even at under 21 level, I'm just a little bit sort of on the fence about it all, and certainly when it comes to senior level. So he can just go and, good luck to him as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to shed any tears over losing a 16-year-old kid who's never even been close to a first team. I have to admit. Finsbury Phil, says a lot of comments about not knowing who will start and what roles we will have. At the same time, we talk about building a world-class squad just like City. This is the next evolutionary step for Arteta to truly play with a squad and to juggle 18 players who understand that depending on the situation, they won't always play, but they will contribute to winning trophies 100%. And that's what the squad building's all been about the last couple of years, is to build into this point where you can have 18 or so players all at around the same level that Arteta is confident enough to just bring in, rotate, and not worry about the sort of overall level of the team dipping. He wasn't there last season. That was very, very obvious in terms of the substitute he had. With the signing of Calafiori, that adds to it. And hopefully with the signing of at least one other midfielder and potentially an attacker between now and the end of the window, then again, he will have players that he trusts more to sort of build that sort of level of squad, very similar to what we've seen at Manchester City. Here's one from Amabit who says, Hi, Charles. Love your content as always. Thank you very much. Since Mikel likes versatility in his players, I wonder why we aren't going for Julian Alvarez. He's definitely underrated. He perfectly fits the profile for us. He is young, can play in multiple positions across the front line, and can also play in Odegaard's position. In short, he might be a clever player to add to our squad. Would love to know your thoughts about it. Amabit from India. Yeah, look, I wouldn't turn my nose up at Julian Alvarez, but I'm pretty sure Manchester City it'll be a very swift response should Arsenal go in for a move for Alvarez. And it won't be a positive one, shall we say. Yes, they were happy a few years ago to do the Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus deal. I would hazard a guess that they would not be happy to sanction this move to their biggest rival in the Premier League. So as much as Alvarez might be kind of publicly hinting a little bit about a possible move away, that I have seen I think his comments have wound Guardiola up a little bit, looking at Guardiola's reaction yesterday over a US tour. But look, if Alvarez does push to get a move away from the club, I highly, highly doubt that Arsenal would be an option that Man City would even consider. Oh, and there's an empty slide there, which means we've come to the end of today's show. Thank you very much for watching or listening. As always, I do appreciate it. Like I said, if you want to watch tonight's game and you want to get involved in tomorrow's show, come back after the full-time whistle. Leave your comments, leave your reaction. I'll pull them together and get them included in the show. Until then, have a fantastic day, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.